but should be used when a fitted facing has already been attached to the garment, as in this example. A 1-inch seam allowance will make the application easier. Stitch the seam from the lower edge of the garment to the end of the placket opening. Press the seam open. Notice that the seam line has been marked with hand basting in the placket area. The length of the placket opening equals the length of the zipper teeth plus about 1/2 inch. On the right side, fold under the seam allowance and press in a fold which is 1/8 inch into the seam allowance from the marked seam line. Use just the tip of the iron when pressing on the right side of the fabric. On the left side, press under the total seam allowance, folding the fabric directly on the marked seam line. Use a press cloth or press from the wrong side if the fabric is distorted by pressing. Be careful not to stretch the fabric when pressing. To attach the zipper to the right side, place the zipper face side up beneath the extended seam allowance. The top of the zipper pull tab should be about 1/2 inch below the seam line at the top of the garment to allow for a fastener above the zipper. The folded edge will be about 1/16 of an inch from the zipper teeth. I find it easiest to place the pins parallel to the folded edge. Continue pinning to the bottom of the zipper tape. At the top of the zipper, curve the tape back away from the edge so the raw ends of the tape will be tucked under the garment. The right side is now ready for machine stitching. Attach the zipper foot and shift it to the right of the needle. Starting at the seam line at the top of the garment, stitch as close as possible to the folded edge on the right side of the garment. Remove the pins as necessary. Notice that the stitching should be in the seam allowance to the left of the marked seam line. Continue stitching beyond the bottom of the placket opening to the bottom of the zipper tape. Back stitching can be used to secure the threads at both ends. Notice that the stitching extends to the bottom of the zipper tape and is to the left of the marked seam line. Open up the garment and lay flat on the table. Working from the outside, pin the left side over the right side, first matching the seam lines at the top of the garment. The fold should cover the zipper and the machine stitching by about 1/8 inch. Pin close to the fold. Be sure that the underlap is smooth at the base of the zipper. Place a second row of pins through all layers about 1/2 inch away from the top placket fold. Continue pinning to the bottom of the placket opening. Remove the first row of pins and open the zipper. At the top of the zipper, curve the tape back as you did on the right side and pin in place. The zipper is now ready to be machine stitched. Shift the zipper foot to the left of the needle. Start stitching at the seam line at the top of the garment, using the 1/2 inch marking on the throat plate as a guide. Since the stitching will show, you should not backstitch. Continue stitching to within 1 inch of the bottom. Leave the needle in the fabric. Raise the presser foot and close the zipper for about 2 inches. Lower the presser foot and stitch to the corner, leaving the needle in the fabric pivot, and then complete the stitching across the bottom of the zipper placket, stopping at the seam line. Since the stitching shows from the right side, threads should be secured by tying on the wrong side at both top and bottom of the zipper. Do this by pulling the top thread to the wrong side and securing with a knot. A tailor's knot works well. Form this knot by making a loop with both threads. Put the ends of the threads through the loop, cover with your finger, and pull to secure the knot. The completed zipper should have a lap that is uniform in width. It should completely cover the zipper teeth, the pull tab, and the machine stitching on the right side. Applying a lap zipper, closed seam method. In this method, the zipper is applied before the waistline or neckline has been finished. You will find the application easier if a 1-inch seam allowance is used. Notice that the seam below the zipper has been sewn using a regular stitch length, backstitching at both ends. The length of the placket opening is equal to the length of the zipper plus the 5/8" seam allowance, plus another 1/4 inch, or a total of about 7/8 of an inch. Machine baste this opening together using the longest stitch length. Then press the seam open. With the garment right side up, fold the left side against the right side so that just the seam allowance on the right side is extended. Notice a pin is marking the bottom of the placket opening. Open the zipper and place the right side of the zipper tape face down on the extended seam allowance. Position the zipper so that the teeth are along the seam and the bottom of the zipper extends just above the end of the placket. Pin in place. I usually find it easiest to place the pins parallel to the tape. Remember to pin all the way to the bottom of the zipper tape. Notice that the bottom of the zipper stop is just above the pin marking at the end of the placket opening. Attach the zipper foot and adjust to the right of the needle. Close the zipper and machine stitch the zipper close to the zipper teeth. Remember, you are stitching the zipper to only the seam allowance. Continue stitching all the way to the top of the zipper tape. Notice that this stitching is located close to the teeth of the zipper. Keeping the garment in the same position, turn the zipper right side up and pull the fabric tight against this first stitching. Starting again at the bottom of the zipper tape, stitch the same side of the zipper tape as before, but this time place the stitching about 1/16 of an inch from the folded seam allowance. Notice that the zipper foot is to the left of the needle. The machine stitching is still in the seam allowance and is very close to the folded edge. You will want to be careful that the machine stitching does not go across the seam line. Lay the garment flat on the table so the zipper is face down over the seam allowance. Turn the pull tab up and carefully turn the garment right side up. Pin through the fabric and the zipper tape on the side not yet stitched. This should be the left side of the zipper. Place the pins parallel to the zipper and about 1/2 inch from the seam. Place a pin just below the bottom stop to help in determining where to machine stitch at the bottom of the zipper. Place a strip of 1/2 inch wide transparent tape with one edge along the seam line. The other edge of the tape can be used as a stitching guide. With the zipper foot again to the right of the needle, stitch this side of the zipper starting at the seam just below the bottom stop. Stitch across the bottom the width of the tape. At the corner, stop with the needle still in the fabric and pivot the material. Continue stitching up the side using the edge of the tape as your stitching guide. Stop about 2 inches from the top of the garment, leaving the needle in the fabric. Be sure you have a pin holding the top of the zipper tape in place. Raise the presser foot and from the underside push the pull tab, opening the zipper about 2 inches. Then continue stitching to the top of the garment. It is very difficult to stitch straight when the zipper is closed, as the pull tab is quite bulky. However, this technique seems to work quite well. At the base of the zipper, pull the top thread through to the wrong side and fasten securely. A tailor's knot works quite well. Form the knot by making a loop with both threads. Pull the ends of the thread through the loop. Cover the knot with your finger and pull the threads tight. The knot should be right against the fabric. Remove the basting which was holding the seam together. Press from the wrong side or use a press cloth if pressing on the right side. The lap on the finished zipper should be even in width and should completely cover the zipper, the pull tab, and the machine stitching on the right side. Hand stitching a lapped zipper. Zippers can be totally or partially applied with hand stitching. The method used on this tape substitutes the pick stitch for the machine stitching on the lap side of the zipper. A 1-inch seam allowance will make the application easier. Sew the seam below the zipper from the lower edge of the garment to the bottom of the placket opening and press open. Basting along the seam lines in the placket area makes it easier to insert the zipper. Position the fabric so that the seam allowance for the right side is extended. Open the zipper and place the right side of the zipper face down on the extended seam allowance. The top of the zipper teeth is usually about 7/8 of an inch below the top of the garment. The teeth of the zipper should lie along the marked seam line. I find it easiest to place the pins parallel to the zipper tape. One word of caution, be careful not to stretch the fabric as you pin. This can be a problem when the placket area is not basted shut. Continue pinning to the bottom of the tape, always keeping the zipper teeth along the marked seam line. Attach the zipper foot to the machine and shift it to the left of the needle. With the zipper still in the same position, machine stitch close to the zipper teeth. Use a regular stitch length and stitch to the very bottom of the zipper tape. This stitching will actually be about 1/4 inch from the regular seam line. Since this stitching will not show from the right side, it can be secured at both ends by back stitching. Close the zipper and turn right side up. Pull the fabric tight against this stitching. Carefully press from the right side, using a press cloth if necessary to protect the fabric. It is important to notice that the fold formed next to the zipper teeth is not in line with the seam line at the base of the zipper. Fold under the opposite seam allowance along the marked seam line and press. A damp press cloth may be necessary when working with some fabrics to get a sharp fold. Lay the fabric face up on a table. Working from the outside of the garment, pin the left side over the right side, matching the seam lines. This should give you an underlap of at least 1/8 of an inch. Pin parallel to the seam and close to the fold. Place a strip of 1/2 inch wide transparent tape over the pins with one edge along the seam line. This tape will be used as a guide for the final hand stitching. The stitch used to complete the zipper is called a pick stitch. A double strand of regular sewing thread is usually used to make the stitch. Secure the thread on the underside of the zipper tape at the bottom of the placket. Bring the needle to the right side close to the seam line. To make the pick stitch, take a small stitch back toward the starting point, catching 1 or 2 yarns, and going through all layers of the fabric plus the zipper tape. Bring the needle to the right side about 1/4 inch ahead of the point at which the needle entered. Pull the thread tight between each stitch. Remember to put the needle in 1 or 2 yarns behind your thread. Bring the needle out 1/4 inch ahead of the thread and to pull the thread tight between each stitch. Continue stitching the full length of the placket, using the edge of the tape as your guide. Remove the tape, the pins, and the hand basting, and your zipper should be completed. The lap of the zipper should completely cover the zipper tape and the pull tab. The pick stitch should be small and inconspicuous. This technique is preferred when working on sheers, velvets, and often used on wool-like fabrics. Applying an invisible zipper. This method of applying a zipper requires the use of a special foot for satisfactory application. The entire seam is left open during application. Lay the garment and zipper in front of you right side up. Open the zipper and place the right zipper tape to right side of the garment with right sides together. Position the top of the zipper coil about 3/8 inch below the stitching line if a fastener will be used at the top of the garment. The zipper coil should be directly on the seam line and the tape extending into the seam allowance. Pin the zipper to the garment, placing pins close to the finished edge of the zipper tape. Attach the special zipper foot to the machine. Place the unfolded coil of the zipper under the groove on the right side of the zipper foot. You will find it necessary to unfold the coil as you stitch. Since the pins are close to the edge of the tape, they are out of the way of the zipper foot. Continue stitching to the bottom until you meet the pull tab, and then back stitch. You will not be stitching to the end of the zipper tape with this technique. Before pinning the zipper to the left side, close the zipper to avoid getting the tape twisted. Bring the right sides of the fabric together, lining up the 2 sides at the top edge. With right sides of the zipper and fabric together, pin the tape to the fabric, making sure it is the same distance from the top of the garment as it was on the first side. Notice that you are now pinning the left tape to the left side of the garment. Continue pinning in the same manner as was done on the right side. Stitch the left zipper tape in the same way as you stitched the right side, but this time use the left groove on the zipper foot. Remember to uncoil the zipper tape as you stitch. Stitch down to the pull tab and backstitch as you did on the right side. Now is the time to stitch the seam below the zipper. Close the zipper and bring the 2 sides together. Pin the seam closed below the zipper. Lift up the unstitched tail of the zipper and place the first pin parallel to the seam line directly below the machine stitching. Check the position of the pin on both sides of the garment. Reposition the pin until both sides line up correctly. Then use this pin as your stitching guide. Pin the 2 edges together to the bottom of the garment. The position of the top pin is critical to the placement of the seam. Slide the zipper foot to the left of the needle. Start the machine stitching at the end of the previous stitching. Put the needle into the fabric and take a couple of stitches before removing the pin. Continue stitching to the bottom of the garment. It is best not to backstitch at the top, but to tie the threads after completing the seam. Press the seam open. Machine stitch the ends of the zipper tape to the seam allowance for about 1 inch. The seam and the zipper can be lightly pressed from the right side using a press cloth. The finished zipper appears to look like a seam, and all that is visible is the small pull tab at the top. Applying an exposed zipper. An exposed zipper is usually used when a zipper is needed where there is no seam. The zipper may be inserted before or after finishing the neck edge, depending on the type of finish used. The center of the garment has been marked with hand basting. The length of the zipper opening is marked by placing the zipper on the top of the garment and putting a pin at the point, just below the bottom stop. This neckline has already been finished with a ribbing, and the zipper will extend up to the top of the ribbing. Outline the zipper opening with machine stay stitching, shortening the stitches at the bottom for reinforcement. The stitching is placed about 1/8 inch on each side of the marked line. When it is desirable to have more of the zipper tape showing, this stitching would be placed further from the center line. Place the zipper face down with the right side of the zipper against the right side of the garment. The bottom stop should be just below the base of the stay stitching and the center of the zipper in line with the center of the garment. Pin in place. Using a zipper foot, machine stitch across the tape directly below the bottom stop, the width of the stay stitched opening. Use small stitches and stitch back and forth several times. This stitching should fall just below the base of the stay stitching on the garment. Turn the garment wrong side up and cut between the stay stitching, from the neck edge to within 1/4 inch of the bottom, then diagonally to each corner. It is important to cut all the way to the corner, but not to cut through the stay stitching. Bring the top of the zipper to the neck edge and tuck the zipper underneath the garment opening. Working from the wrong side and with the garment side facing you, pin the fabric to the zipper tape. Place the stay-stitched line close to the zipper teeth and position the pins parallel to and directly on the stay-stitched line. Check the placement of the pinning from the right side and then use the pins as a sewing guide. Pin both sides of the zipper in this way. With the zipper foot to the right of the needle, stitch the seam using the pins and the stay stitching as a guide. Remove the pins as you come to them. Accurate straight stitching is most important, since the seam line will show from the right side. When the zipper extends up into the ribbing at the neck edge, fold back the end of the zipper tape, covering up the raw end, and tack in place by hand. Use a small slip stitch, sliding the needle under the tape between each stitch. It is important to keep the tape from extending above the top of the ribbing. There is usually no fastener placed at the neck edge when an exposed zipper is used. It is important that the amount of tape showing on each side of the zipper teeth be uniform and that the stitching be straight. Applying a fly front zipper. The fly front zipper illustrated here laps left over right. The process would be reversed for one lapping the opposite direction. The fly facings were cut as an extension of the garment front. The fold lines were then traced to the wrong side of the garment front pieces. The top stitching line for the lap was marked with hand basting on the left front. Interfacing can be applied to the facing, bringing the interfacing to the fold line markings. Pin the front pieces together below the zipper opening. When working on pants, locate the first pin 1 to 1.5 inches from the inseam and the second pin at the bottom of the placket opening. Stitch the seam closed to the bottom of the placket opening. When working on pants, it would be a good idea to stitch this portion of the crotch curve a second time for reinforcement, as it would be difficult to reinforce this seam once the zipper has been inserted. Then lengthen the machine stitch to the longest setting and baste the placket opening together. Clip through the seam allowance to the machine stitching just below the placket facing. This will permit you to press the seam open above the clipped seam allowance. Lay the garment in front of you so that only the right facing is extended. Place the closed zipper face down on the extended facing so that the left edge of the zipper tape lies along the seam line, and the zipper stop is located at the end of the placket opening. Pin in place. If there is excess zipper tape, it usually extends above the top of the garment. Attach the zipper foot to the machine and shift the foot to the right of the needle. Stitch the right zipper tape to the extended facing, placing the first row of stitching close to the zipper teeth. A second row is then placed close to the edge of the tape. Notice that when positioning the zipper, the left edge of the tape is along the center front seam. Refold the garment so that only the left facing is extended. Pull the zipper over the left facing as far as it will go and still remain flat. A fold will form along the side already stitched. Finger press this fold, or you may press it with an iron. Pin the left zipper tape to the extended facing. Shift the zipper foot to the left of the needle. Stitch this side of the zipper the same as for the right side, placing one row of stitching close to the zipper teeth and a second row close to the edge of the tape. Both sides of the zipper have been stitched in the same manner. Turn the garment right side up. Notice that the zipper lies to the left of the center seam. Pin the zipper facing to the garment front, placing pins along the marked top stitching line. Shift the foot to the right of the needle and top stitch following the marked line. This stitching should be catching the fly facing, but does not need to go through the zipper tape. The stitch length can be lengthened if you want to coordinate this stitching with other top stitching on the garment, or it can be done with regular stitch length. Threads can be secured by backstitching at the top, but are usually tied at the bottom of the placket opening. Remove the basting marking the stitching line, as well as the basting along the center front seam. If the zipper was too long, open the zipper and machine stitch across the zipper near the waistline seam to prevent the zipper tab from being pulled off after the excess tape has been cut off. Trim the zipper tape even with the top of the garment. The bottom of the placket can be bar tacked if desired to reinforce the placket opening. With this technique, the zipper and pull tab are tucked under the folded edge, so the fly front lies flat and smooth when the zipper is closed.